with both of us, when we separated from our husbands, we like to call them husbands because we find ex-husband is a little non-honoring of the time you spent together.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We always strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy and positive approach to non-monogamy.
However, everyone approaches this a little different, and at its core, our show is about hearing and learning from the different experiences and approaches people have. With that in mind, it's important to remember that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of our own.
It's also important to remember that we aren't doctors or therapists and that we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on this show.
One final thing that we need to let you know about is that this podcast will hopefully include some explicit language. So, if that kind of thing offends you, we suggest you just keep listening until it no longer does. However, if you're under the age of 18, you should probably stop listening or gather up your parents and listen as a family. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 49. We're Finn and Emma.
That's one less than 50.
I know, we're almost at the big 50.
Yeah. All right. Well, today we got the Torrid Souls, a new-ish podcast.
Yeah, Tori and Soul.
Tori and Soul. So, one of the things that we love about having this platform is being able to promote other podcasters, other content creators, and give, them as a resource to people. So, we have an awesome chat with Tori and Soul today. We talk about Ellen and Oprah.
I know, they get some advice from them.
Which is weird. We also talk about Christmas. They mention some Christmas presents. And so we just wanted to mention that this was actually recorded before Christmas, and we wanted to thank them for their patience on the release of this. So partly because of our travel schedule, we had to delay it a little bit. So Thank you to them for their patience. Also, stick around right to the very end because we learn a major life lesson, and it happens right at the end. So you don't want to miss that.
Right.
On the topic of providing plugs for other content creators, there's two that we wanted to mention. One of them is Swinger Diaries. They are a very popular podcast. Most of you probably know who they are, but some of you may not. And we've talked to them about coming on the show, and they're very private about their private lives. That's why they're called their private lives. And so they basically said, we'd love to support you, but we don't really want to come on the show. And that's our primary way of plugging other shows. So we just wanted to throw them some love and say,
go check out their podcast.
Yeah, and thank you for sending some traffic our way. We know you've read some of our questions on your show, and you've mentioned us, so
thank you.
Thank you for that.
The other one is Couple Next Door.
Yeah, they mention us on a lot of their episodes, and we are having them on our show. It will probably publish in May sometime. Again, thank you to them. It's been a little bit of their timing and our timing. We can't seem to line them up, but we're going to interview them soon, and they'll be out in May. So again, thank you to them. We're excited to plug them and get their wisdom out there. So
yes, definitely.
We are ready to jump over to the interview in T-1 minute.
We have a couple quick resources to mention. The first is we are doing a contest with STD Check. So please go on to our website at Normalizing Non-Monogamy /contest.
Well, it's .com/contest.
Yes. Okay.
That's how websites work.
I figured that people knew the .com part. Anyway, you can win a $50 gift card.
Or you can just, right on the homepage, there's a big button that says win a $50 gift card. So go check that out. The other one is a super free, absolutely free, no gimmicks resource that we use all the time. It's called Personal Capital. We use it basically for money management, budgeting, keeping track of where all our stuff is while we travel around and while we figure out where we can spend money to go do fun swinger and poly things in our life. So
it's a resource where you can see all of your accounts in one place, which is really convenient. So definitely check it out.
Check it out. Again, it is free, but actually using the links on the site does help the show. So if you want to support us, but also pay $0, go give it a try. Use it. I promise you will love it. We love it, and we use it every day.
Yes.
So let's go talk to Tori and Soul.
Yes. Let's go.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oopsie daisies. We forgot one other thing. We've updated the website, and we mentioned that a while back, but one of the other updates that we've done to the website is we've added photos of most of the guests. So the ones who wanted a photo of themselves, they sent us over photos, and we've got some super sexy ones, some super fun ones, and just it's awesome to see a face or a body with the interview. So go check those out, and while you're there,
contact us. Please reach out. We love hearing from listeners, whether you want to come on the show or not. We still love hearing from all of you. So please reach out. You can write us an email on the webpage, or you can also send us a voice message. So again, our email, our website is normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Yeah, let's go.
Let's go now for real. Yeah, so welcome, Torrid Souls podcasters.
Woohoo!
Tori and Soul. To Normalizing Non-Monogamy.
Hey.
Hi.
You are...
Who are you?
Oh, I'm Tori.
Do you know who you are?
I do today. Yeah.
Okay. You be?
I'm Tori.
And I'll be Soul.
Just for today, though.
Just for today. Yeah.
And yeah, real quick, before we get too deep, you recently launched a podcast, and how is it going?
Yeah, it's going great. We have probably more material than our time to edit can keep up with. So we're enjoying the process, really liking the community, especially the community on Twitter. We never knew sexy Twitter existed until we started listening to the lifestyle podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And maybe a quick rundown of, well, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's tell your story, and then people can figure out what your podcast is about. And if they can't, then...
Yeah, let's jump into that.
Because that kind of is the podcast, so it works.
Yeah.
So
can you give the listeners a little bit of an idea of who both of you are?
Sure, yeah. So we are a same-sex female couple. We got married in May of 2018. And we've been together.
By the way.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
We've been together a long time now. We've been together over a decade, and we, for some reason, decided, I guess it's working out well, so we'll get married.
The test drive is over, and it all works out.
After 10 years.
Yeah. And so what else can we say about us? We decided to start the podcast kind of after doing a lot of lifestyle vacations and learning that people were actually kind of interested in what we had to say.
Mm-hmm.
We started in the lifestyle probably about almost 3 years ago now.
Probably around
that.
okay.
I'll agree with that.
All right. Anything you want to add?
I think, as you said, it was an idea that somebody said to us, you guys should do a podcast. And we're like, really? And you have listened to podcasts for quite some time. I don't listen as much as you do, but...
No, how that goes is I listen to the podcast and I go, okay, this one you got to listen to because I know what she likes.
Right.
This clip you got to listen to. And so I listen to everything. And then she listens to the ones I tell her to.
Yeah. And based on our names, somebody gifted us the name Torrid Souls with Tori and Soul, and we kind of ran with that and realized that we needed to help others in the sense of just relating to relationships, because we've had people come to us and, how do you guys do that? And why do you guys have such a great relationships? And you guys look like you're having so much fun all the time. And, as Tori said, we had a wedding recently and everybody at the wedding was just like, oh my gosh, it's just so much love. And so with, the mindset that we have, we on vacation just talk to people about, what's working and what's not, and how to tweak things and how we talk to each other and how we're open and honest. And Tori's a very relaxed person when it comes to relationships. You can talk more about that. I won't put words in your mouth, but you've been pretty open most of your life about...
You're talking about our lifestyle journey?
Yeah, just who you are in a relationship. And you were quite relaxed about just being okay with your previous relationships.
I've always been, for us, I've always seen relationship in a very specific way. The relationships that I've had, I really value, and I always say it sometimes it's taken wrong, but I say it in the way that I put relationships sort of on a pedestal. I see them as kind of a separate entity to the two people, or more, if it's more people, the people in the relationship. Is that to me, speaking of us specifically, Soul has her own relationship with herself. I have my own relationship with myself. Those are both important. We need to be whole, complete individuals on our own. And then we see the relationship as a separate entity that we both contribute to. Right. So by doing that, it makes it so that the relationship has to feed the individuals, but it also has to be seen as something really special to be cherished that you would put up on a pedestal. Yeah. So it's just a different way. It's a visual that helps, that I've always seen as helping to keep my sort of goals and ways of being in alignment. And I kind of taught that to her.
Yeah. And you've taught me to realize that, being together makes us better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
relationships are supposed to make people better.
That's how you kind of judge the quality of the relationship. It's not about being easy, and it's about if the other person is challenging you, but it's challenging you to be a better person versus just annoying the hell out of you, then it's something to consider. And that's how we approach each other, and that's how we can talk with our kids about that.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's possible, but had either of you been in an open style relationship of any type prior to this?
Yes, the either. One of us, not the other. So from Soul, do you want to say about your relationship background first?
The non-open one?
Yes, that one.
The one? The one, that person that I met when I was just barely a teenager and married to for
we were both married to men before,
so and quite traditional. And I would say that as a person, I didn't necessarily believe in monogamy, but I didn't really know what else there was. I just knew it was a very friendly, flirty kind of person, and I didn't have anything to.
You used to react to the word when someone would say you were flirty. You're like, no, I'm just friendly.
Yeah, I've come to terms. I've embraced flirty. Past flirty, we're into slutty now.
Okay.
But that was never an option that was presented in any part of my life. Coming from the West Indies, that is not. It's a very Christian background.
That's not true. It's Christian background. It's plenty of non-monogamy, just not consensual.
Yes.
Because the men...
The men are everywhere and have children everywhere. And it was just something that was...
Don't talk about.
You don't talk about it, and you understood, they have their wives at home and they have their women all over the place. But it wasn't seen as anything that was to aspire to. And it kind of, angered me because it was non-consensual. Mm-hmm. So that's all I knew. So I got married in my early 20s and stayed married until I wasn't anymore. And that
until
was
you met me. Yeah.
And that was it.
So, yeah. And so for me, Tori speaking, for me, it was more from the perspective of, I don't think I got the idea or knew anything about non-monogamy. It just was what was natural for me. So I've been known, I guess probably what turned me that direction is one of my very early relationships. I was probably 17. One of my early serious relationships, he was an extremely jealous and possessive and emotionally abusive person. And when I ended up eventually leaving that circumstance, we were together for about a year, I realized that there was no way I was ever going anywhere near anything like that again, because it was so not me. It was just not the way that I was.
Sounded suffocating.
It was absolutely, like, so much so that, like, he drove a pickup truck, and I'm from a fairly small community. So he drove a pickup truck, and I would be told that I had to sit in the center next to him. And I was not allowed to look out the front windows, because if I looked at anybody, it would be, oh, you like that? You want to get with that, don't you? And it's like, it was not a thought in my head at all. But It was so pushed into me and crushed into me that I can't look at anyone.
And this is while you were a teenager, right?
Yeah. I was 17 when I met him. Yeah. And we ended up living together. And when I ended up leaving, I actually had to get a bus and go to another city where my mom lived so that I could get away from him. It was a pretty messy situation. So, but that being said, beyond that, I wouldn't say I kind of went polar opposite. I just went into what was naturally me. So I had other relationships, and I remember one relationship that I was with for probably about 2 or 3 years. And I guess in essence, we had sort of a threesome, I guess, but I didn't really get that that's what it was. It was just my girlfriend was sleeping over, and then we ended up fooling around in bed, and that's kind of what we did. So it just seemed natural, and it was totally fine. And then bring it to the marriage. I did marry one man, and we were married for about 5 years. And even in that, he was into sports. And when he played sports before he met me, there'd be times that after they would go play hockey, then they would all go out to what they called the rub and tuck, which would be like the massage parlor. Uh-huh. And when he met me, he now didn't think that this was okay. So he would tell me that this is what the guys do. And I said, well, I'm okay with that. Just check with me first. And he's like, what? And it was like, check in with me. If I feel that we're connected and we're in a good place, I am totally fine with it. I'll say, yeah, go ahead, have fun. So he would do that. And there's times that he would check in with me and I would say, no, you know what? I'd really like you to come home tonight. And he would come home. And then there's other times, which was more often than not, where he'd say, is it okay? And I'd say, yeah, have fun. We'll see you later. Yeah. So, but I never knew this was called consensual non-monogamy. This was just who I was.
Right. I think we kind of figured that out almost today.
We were talking about it, talking about meeting with you guys. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I don't think I ever clued in that that's actually what it was.
Yeah. And it was just naturally present in you. Like you didn't even think about it as too big of a deal.
No, exactly. Because for me, going back to my analogy with relationships, I always saw that the relationship, because I see it as an emotional, I guess, emotional monogamy, I suppose. We haven't explored anything poly, nor is that of an interest to us. No judgment against people who it is. It's just not the part for me. But for me, that emotional monogamy, or the emotional part where that's the relationship on the pedestal, I don't have any problems with that, because if there was ever anything that was possibly going to change about that, there would be communication. It's an understanding. We would be talking about stuff that is possibly going to split us apart or possibly causing problems or strife.
Right. Or just anything that has changed based on what you knew before.
Or growing or changing or whatever. With both of us, when we separated from our husbands, we like to call them husbands because we find ex-husband is a little non-honoring of the time you spent together. We call them husbands. When we ended up deciding that, okay, we were going to probably have to explore this because her soul and I fell for each other. We didn't expect that at all. It was a lot of discussion with them and honoring and sitting on couches and crying and discussing and figuring out what the heck does this mean and where are we going to go with this?
So you two were still married to your husbands at the time when you met?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We met through basically an online, back in the days of the forums, an online forum for bisexual women. So.
Okay.
And so were you, either of you, exploring non-monogamy more fortified in the sense that it wasn't just him going out for a rub and tug or something like that, but you had actually morphed that into something more concrete at that point?
I think for myself, it was more of exploration of, yes, there is an attraction to women. What would that be about? More because I was open-minded from the sexual, and was it with the understanding that probably it would be a threesome with my husband, I think was the way we were seeking for it. Yeah. I think yours might have been a little different. So
yeah, mine was more of a realization over many years that there is an attraction to women.
And what are you going to do about it?
What am I going to do? I think I discovered the attraction with one person in particular. And I was like, what is this about? What are these feelings about? And what I did with that was nothing. I kept it to myself for about 2 years. And it freaked me out because at the time, married with children, I'm like, what am I going to do with this? But in letting myself be okay with that, I could kind of regressed back to being a child and realizing that, it was probably back then too that I would, see teachers or female friends, and what I thought was intimidation was actually an attraction. So at this point, I think I had a dream.
You had a dream about Shania Twain.
Shania Twain. And I remember seeing an Ellen episode back when she had her comedy show, and Oprah was the psychologist that she ended up speaking to and saying that it's not what you dream about that matters, it's how you feel when you wake up in the morning. And I remember that so distinctly. So I had this dream of Shania Twain, and I woke up and I'm like, wow, that was awesome. Holy crap. So then I got really worried because I'm like, okay, it's what you feel like when you wake up. Okay, so this must be serious. And
now I got to figure something out here.
What am I going to do with this? As I said, I kept it to myself for 2 years, and I kind of just looked at people and kind of figured out, whether I was attracted to them or not, all quietly by myself. And then it just kept building, and I couldn't keep it anymore. What was happening was I was starting to shut down and kind of close off from my husband. And he noticed that something had changed. So we talked about it, and we had some advice from a professional that said, go down to Pride and see what that's about and just start to discover things. And we did that together, and we ended up coming across this community of bisexual women.
Yeah, and a lot of them were very similar stories to ours, that they were just not sure what to do with it. We would do things like it would be at a coffee house one week, and then the next month it would be a potluck at somebody's house, and then some of the racier ones were hot tub parties, and then or at a strip club, or there was just fun events, and then there were also some more get to know you intellectual social events. But it was a really good club. I'm really happy.
From my perspective, I thought it was a good way to be able to be, because I'm not a deceptive person. I lie and cheat and steal. Like, as I said, I did this with my husband, and then I went and joined this community, which he knew about. Mm-hmm. Things were helpful for me because I knew that everybody else there was married to a guy, but was interested in women. So I could be totally open and totally and see where this all went. And long story short, ended up meeting Tori. And in that moment, I was like, holy crap. Wow. And it was so fast that we didn't know what to do.
Yeah, it kind of blindsided everybody. So that's why
we ended up sitting on couches with our husbands going, what the hell, what is going to happen here? And, I'm not surprised now because, we've been together for many, many years now. And it's like, I still see her and it's like, wow, holy crap. So it worked out well.
No, that's amazing. So at this point, you were basically open with your husbands or your husbands, sorry.
No, husbands okay too, because they were husbands at that point. Just not exes.
that something else was brewing. Were there discussions about, do we introduce this as a poly type relationship, or was it just right out of the gate like, okay, I guess we have to end what we have so we can start something new?
That's interesting that you say that, because we did not know the term poly back then. I had no clue that even existed. However, if you remember, Soul, your husband actually suggested, why don't we all, because he started dating another girl, and why don't we just all live in one big house? And we thought he was crazy.
Yes, we did.
So
we were like, I don't think so. That's not.
Yeah, but I think part of that was just 4 adults living in a house just seemed a bit much.
And then there was the suggestion of having houses side by side. Again, having kids. It was
mostly because the kids, I think, though. So I don't know that it was truly poly as much as it was for sake of raising the kids.
I think there was a part of it. I would like to guess that having 2 women.
It's hot. Yeah, exactly. And just the fact that he obviously was not necessarily interested in breaking from you.
Yeah.
So that was part of it. So yeah, to answer, there was discussion, but very brief because we were not really open to that.
So on your
What about your side?
Yeah, I was going to say, so on your side, it was mostly we want to end our current marriages so we can explore what we have together.
Yeah, and I think the easiest way to describe that is that we don't see this so much as, because sometimes people, even my family at times when we got together, my family would say things like, oh yeah, well, she discovered she was lesbian, so now that makes sense. That's why she's with a woman. Well, first of all, we don't identify as lesbian, we identify as bisexual, but explaining that to family doesn't make a lot of sense, because then you're basically explaining you're non-monogamous, which opens up a whole nother world of things. Because why would it matter to explain you're bisexual if you're in a primary relationship with a female? It doesn't matter. Anyway, so that's a whole nother discussion. But where was I going with that? I was saying that the idea of us, where was I going with that?
Well, maybe while you're thinking about it, I guess I don't want to argue with you, but I would question that.
But go right ahead. Let's do this.
No, that
start a good old debate.
that there is some merit to identifying out with your family as bisexual, because I think there's a lot of people who don't want to acknowledge that that's a thing, right? That you're either you either like men or you like women. You can't like both. And
we actually didn't know.
Yeah, see, that's a really good point. So currently, I would agree with you. And I just finished coming from spending a month in where my family lives. And the conversation didn't come up specifically related to me, but it did start to talk about bisexual and poly. And we spoke about people in relationships, and more or less, I guess I alluded to the fact that I was bisexual, and they just accepted it because they're in a different place. But like a decade ago, this was a different story.
Sure.
So I think we're talking more then. It didn't make sense to explain much. Plus, as Soul was about to say, I don't think we actually really knew at the time. No, we just knew we had this attraction towards women.
Yeah. For me, it was having these thoughts while I was with my husband. Where are the breasts, man? Where are the boobs? The boobs are missing. So I kind of went in search of boobs. And when I found them, they were awesome. And I thought, okay, this is it. I just happened to, go from being a child to being in a relationship. And the next thing you're supposed to do is get married. So I did. So maybe I just didn't know. Now I know. So I'm with this person and it feels great. So I must be a lesbian.
Yeah.
And that's what I went with. And
yeah, I think that's what we both thought at
that's
that point
what you
too.
went with. We just didn't have an idea of, you said you were attracted to men with long hair. So maybe you just didn't know that you were attracted to women.
But see, we didn't know, we didn't know anybody that even identified even as a lesbian, never mind bisexual. So This was not anything we had a sounding board to be able to play off of.
Yeah.
And I think over the years of discovering and us just having lots of discussions with each other, and then discovering, no, wait a minute, we do still find men attractive.
Yeah. And I think it was from more my perspective. I've always been attracted to people in general, and we had lots of discussion about that. And you often said, not so much, you thought you were definitely interested in women only. But over the years, I'd say, well, what about him? Or what about this? Or what about that? And you'd be like, oh, okay. And then that led into the discussion of, wouldn't that be interesting to see you with your husband? I didn't get to see that. And I was like, what? What are you talking about?
That's what I said, yeah.
And she said, yeah, that would be so cool if I had, gotten to see you with him. That'd be so hot. I'm thinking, this woman's crazy, but she's hot. So I'm just going to go with the hot, crazy matrix. The hotter you are, the crazier you are. I'm just going to go with that. And she kept saying that over years. Oh, that would be so hot to see you with the guy. And
it wasn't a daily thing, but yes, it was mentioned.
It was mentioned on and off. And I realized that she was serious. And I realized that she's not a jealous person. I had never met somebody who was not jealous. And that was weird. She would just say that would be so good, and interesting. And I said, you'd be interested in seeing that? And she's like, yeah. And then she'd tell me stories about how her husband would, do the rub and tug thing, or she would hire somebody when you went to Vegas and say, okay, go off and have some fun and come back and tell me about it. And I'd be like, really? So this was totally different for me. And after a while believing that she's absolutely not jealous and she would absolutely want to see this, I was like, okay, well, I can do that for you. I can.
Yeah. And I actually remember the point that I was going to get at before. The point that I was going to make before, where I was saying it didn't make sense at the time to speak about being bisexuals. First of all, we didn't know that we were. But second of all, it wasn't that our relationships with our respective husbands were horrible, but there were certain things that would be what I would call lacking. So it wasn't meeting all of the needs that we had as a relationship. It had nothing to do with the gender, we realize now.
Except for the boobs.
Well, yes, that had something to do with the attraction to each other. But we are on our second marriage, as many people are.
Yes.
Because this marriage of these two beings works really well together as a partnership, and it works better than that previous partnership that we had with other beings worked.
Yeah,
no matter
honestly,
what the sexuality was. Yeah.
Yes, and it was honestly falling in love with a person and the way they are and the way we interacted with each other. It had nothing to do with the gender. And we've said that to other people because they think, oh, as Tori said, you were married to a man, you didn't know you were a lesbian, now you're married to a woman. It was just a person. And, on a separate subject, I've found that there's people that close themselves off to relationships because they get along really well with somebody, but they're like, oh, but it's the same sex as I am. I couldn't do that. And it's like, okay. So for us, it was just never an issue. It was like, oh, this person is of interest to each other. And then we went from there. So oftentimes we don't even think about the fact that we're both female. So,
No.
We don't look at ourselves in the mirror walking into a room and seeing two women holding hands. And
unless my boobs are out.
And then I get distracted and I can't make sentences. But it's often a situation where it may sound strange, but we don't remember that we're two women together and how we show up to people.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think that's actually, the story is kind of beautiful because when you said, you just made the relation of like falling in love with that person, and sure, it may have been a little messy at the time, but in the end, we're all just people, right? And and you can love different people in different ways and for different reasons, but we're all just people, and sex, your gender and sexuality is part of who you are, but it's not always as important as just the fact that you're human, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And when it comes to being in the lifestyle, it's about discovering yourself and your comfort level, your confidence, and what interests you sexually. And that in itself has nothing to do with gender. It's just pleasure. And I know sometimes people are a little cautious, maybe sometimes guys are not as comfortable with other guys touching them. And I always, play devil's advocate. And I said,
no, it's called shit disturber is what it's
I'm
called.
a shit disturber. And I say to them, if I blindfolded you and it felt good, would it matter? And that's where my conversation goes. It has nothing to do with gender. It's skin and it's feeling. And does something feel good or not? Right. And I guess that's just how we approach our lives.
It's what feels good. And then, of course, what are we attracted to?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not advocating people do things that they're not interested in, but to be shut off from things that just because of what the outside looks like.
Yeah.
So, and that's my...
Yeah, and I think, so it took roughly 7 years of being together that for you to move from a monogamous sort of confine to the non-monogamy or the lifestyle. And you talked a little bit about how you got there, but how did that, what kind of pushed you over the edge finally?
Who pushed who over the edge?
Yeah, who pulled?
Well, you know, lots of people talk about you always move at the rate of the slowest person.
As fast as the slowest person.
Yes.
Yeah. And so same thing, exact same thing here. And so for me is mentioning the things that I found interesting, mentioning that, hey, wow, yeah, I really would have liked to see that. The simple fact is that sex worked well with her and her husband. So that was, hey, well, yeah, I would have liked to see that. I would have liked to see how that worked so well.
Yeah, we did have conversations about how that works. And it does work. And the fact that I'm, with a female person now in certain parts.
So then for me, it's like this part is lacking now. So, gee, that would be really cool. And then I think we went to one of those sex shows and there was a booth because again, we're in Toronto. So there are sex clubs or swinger clubs. There's 5 of them in the area. And there was one of them there called Oasis. And they had display and some women to talk to everybody about what it was all about. And we were really drawn to the place from a freedom. Like it's just an amazing place that has...
It's very open to having anyone of any gender,
any orientation,
and
everyone, and it's very respectful of people's boundaries. So nothing happens unless it's consent, and you can come in and there's lots of nudists that go there too. So it's just a really great place.
There's hot tub, and
so we took their free pass from them at the thing, and we decided to go and check them out one time. And
newbie night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was newbie night.
And they were gonna give us a tour and just let us know what it's all about. So we
did that, and then we went back another time and another time, and then. Yeah, we were scared.
So scared. We're like, oh my God, what is this going to be all about?
But I think what are you getting yourself into?
Exactly. But the fact that there was somebody that was going to give us a tour and talk to us about how it all works, we were like, okay, at least everybody else there on the tour is going to be as nervous as we are. So we did that. And then when the tour ended, we were like, okay, what do we do now?
Yeah, and I think when we went back that night, we stuck around for a while, and then I think we went back another time, but just seeing what happened and just being around people and seeing the conversations or listening to the conversations or having conversations with people and realizing it's not such a scary place full of crazy people.
Because that night we had a couple come up to us and say, so what are you guys into? And we're like, we have no idea. We're so new, we don't know. And they were really interested. And in hindsight, we can say that they probably had way more experience. So they were just asking questions, but we were like, wow,
totally intimidated.
We were going to have answers to questions people are going to ask us. So we just kind of stuck with ourselves. And
then we went home and we had conversations about what is it that we're into? What would we be open to? What would we be interested in?
Yes.
And so that's sort of the start of it.
And we just had it as a place that we could be sexy together without feeling uncomfortable. And so we tried that for quite a while.
Going there and being in the environment.
Being in the environment, and then they have sort of playrooms that are kind of open to other areas, and certain nights of the week are different rules about who's allowed, whether the single men are allowed on the playroom floor, because it's an old mansion, so it's several floors.
Yep.
And then so we would just go and just find a spot and just play the two of us, and we did that several times.
And there's an outdoor swimming pool that is heated like a hot tub, so a lot of people just come and hang out and chat. So it's a very social place. So we became more and more comfortable, and people would talk about their lives.
Plus people start to recognize you once you go a few times, so that was part of it too.
And so we were there one afternoon because we tend to add it on to appointments or whatever, and we were at the bar, and honestly, it was probably like 3 people in the place.
Yeah, it was a quiet day.
And we were having a drink at the bar, and there was a guy at the bar that said, hi. And we were like, oh, God, we're going to have to talk. But
he was actually really nice.
Yes. And he to make it a short story, he basically said that, can I just watch you two?
Because we told him that that's all we were really doing, is we were just playing amongst ourselves. He says, well, would you mind if I came up with you guys and just watch? And so we agreed to that. So that was sort of our first dive in.
Yeah, that was our sort of first experience-ish.
Yeah.
We call him Mr. Anonymous. We don't know who he is.
We actually never remembered his name. So
no, we never got a name, and we've never seen him again.
I was going to just take a quick plug for Oasis, and you've talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, because we've been there too.
Yeah, we've been there.
Good.
And I think it's if anybody's within, a couple hour drive, or even if you're thinking about like, oh, we'd love to go away for a weekend and do something.
Toronto's a really fun place.
Yeah, for one, Toronto's a fun place, but two, like, Oasis is a really cool blend of, like you said, it's an old Victorian mansion. It's got different floors of different levels. The pool is like 95 degrees or whatever.
Even when it's snowing, it's amazing.
In
Celsius, it's what, 35 degrees? Sorry. But I mean, it's a really cool place, and it's all levels of people. And so if you want to be in the environment, but you don't want to feel pressure, like it's a really cool place to go. And
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, the theme nights are very helpful for people because
to look at the website and see what theme night is.
They have Cubs and Cougar night. They have Sass after class. They have Tea Girl night. They have
sword play, which is for bisexual men. They have all different. I know it's not the greatest name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we've tried all the different nights that are of interest to us, and it is different for the different theme nights, and some are more popular than others, but they were all good.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk offline about Cubs and Cougars night. But we can. We actually, that's some of our recordings that's coming up in future episodes too, as we recorded before Scared to Death after what all happened. So that will be coming up.
Cool.
Excellent. Wow. So, so what, I guess, how did it transgress from there? Like what?
Yeah. So you had this Mr. Anonymous night and then, where did it lead?
Well, I think it's been a gradual progression. I think on that night, what the biggest discovery that we had was, because again, we didn't know what we were really interested or where boundaries were, or we had said that if we ever did play with anybody, we had the idea, okay, well, no kissing, which a lot of people start out with that rule, and that one didn't last long. But
I think for a lot of people it doesn't last long.
No, there's the thought process behind it. We discussed it and said, that's something between the two of us and that's intimate, and then we realized that it
takes away from the passion and the fun.
It's kind of
for us. Anyway,
it's missing.
Yeah.
But the background story with the two of us as well is that Tori has had way more experience with different people in her life, and I basically got married really young, and that was the one person. So I've caught up now. In the last few years, but again, going as fast as the slowest person, I was totally freaked out about, being with somebody else, having only been with the one person. And I'm like, what is this going to be like? So, okay, you lead and you do stuff with them and I'll just kind of watch maybe and we'll see. And then I realized I'm not so much of a watcher, I'm a doer. So that quickly changed into I'd rather be the one doing stuff and that way I don't have to, like, I make up stories in my head that, oh, this doesn't look right. Because, you're a porn star in your head. But then when you see pictures, you're like, oh, okay. So I don't want to watch because I'm going to make stuff up. So I just rather be in there and it feels all lovely and awesome. And I'm a porn star. So we decided that it's probably better if we start with each other, getting all warmed up.
Yeah, that's what we've progressed to.
And then we've progressed into adding somebody when we decide to. And it's always adding them to enhance our time together. We're not big on being separate.
Yeah, the concept where they have, I know the swinging world likes to use the terms soft swap and full swap, and it's such an archaic term because it doesn't quite fit what so many people do in the lifestyle.
Right.
Because the idea comes from, okay, you're going to swap, you're going to switch partners, but yet there's many, many people that don't play that way.
Yeah.
And yet what it actually means, kind of like taking a word and giving it a whole new meaning, because what it actually means is penetrative sex or not, is basically
PIV.
Yeah, penis and vagina. Yeah.
Right.
So that's basically what it means, is that or not, because we don't swap per se. We don't switch to another partner. We're always in together. So, but yet on a profile, we have to put that it's full swap because we're trying to say, yes, penetrative sex is what we're looking for, but yet we're not swapping. So anyway.
But we progressed into understanding that works best for us. So we always have conversations, and it tends to be single guys that we play with.
Primarily,
and that the situation is about enhancing our time together, and they have to be okay with that. And it mostly works well. And in that progression, we've also discovered that there's something that you like to see, the hot wife-ish type of thing.
Yeah, they're learning new terms because everybody likes to have labels for everything.
Yes,
so
I
was listening to there's a podcast called Keys and Anklets. Michael is the host of that one. And he's big into the hot wife and then the cuckold for the people that are interested in that stuff. So not so much the cuckold, but the hot wife, when he describes it and he talks about how much pleasure in that case, husband feels when their partner is getting extreme pleasure from this third person they've added to their dynamic, this male that they've added to their dynamic, I totally get it. So but I don't want to sit in a chair across the room. So that's not me. I'm still there, right there, and somewhat involved, but I like her to be the focus of attention. She likes her to be the focus of attention. That's kind of what we've evolved into. Whereas at first she was so scared that she wanted me to lead everything, where now she's definitely the one leading. I may be the one talking and saying, yes, no, this is what she likes, this is what she doesn't like, but she's definitely the center of the attention. And it works well.
Yeah, it has evolved into something that we both end up having a really good time. And that's the purpose of it all, is to have both people feel really good about their version of it, and as a couple come together and have nothing to pull back from each other. And it's a lot of fun pointing out different people or thinking of different situations and then deciding if we want to go try that or not.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing, and it's awesome that you were able to try a lot of different things and then find the things that you kind of zeroed in on, the ones that work.
Right, exactly.
And it's also fun too that it wasn't what you've sort of zeroed in on, at least for now, is from the outside in balance, right? Like one person likes watching the other person, and I think a lot of people would look at that and say, "Oh, well, Tori's not getting hers," but it sounds like you definitely are.
Yeah, it's funny because Soul has said that exact thing. She's like, "Are you sure? Like, you want to be like doing this or doing that?" I'm like, "I'm doing, and I'm fully involved in the way that I want to be involved." Oh, yes, I'm very.
I sometimes say kind of like a caddy.
Yeah, I've got my hands in there. I'm like, I'm helpful.
Everything's being worked on. And...
Ball washer. So yeah,
yes.
But yeah, the part of the way that I describe this to Soul is that because as she said or alluded to, that I have had a lot of experience in the past. I was with a lot of people over the years. I was sexually active from a very young age.
Slut.
Well, that's a good term now, right?
I know.
Our podcast talked about it.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yes, I was. And I was fine with it right from the time I started. I was always fine with it and very in my own element. So pretty much anything that we're doing or that I'm seeing her do, I've already done. And it doesn't mean that that I couldn't repeat it. It's that getting to see her do it for the first time or in a new way or in a new style or with a new person, it's like I get to experience the firsts all over again. And that's a big part of the thrill for me.
Well, with Holly and Michael, when we ended up having discussions with them at Hito last year, and they introduced you to the term compersion.
Oh yeah, because we went to Young Swingers Week at Hito last year. So,
and they introduced that term, and you were like, "Yes, that's it."
Yeah.
So that made a huge difference for you in understanding that you do get a lot of pleasure out of watching me have pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not separate. It is because for me, it's if I was to go off separately with somebody, it would not be enjoyable. I would definitely have something that's missing, and the fact that she's there and accessible in that moment whenever is what makes it great.
And I think part of that is the safety, because then I get to be sort of the touchstone and safety. And I think part of that is also the erotic part of it. There's the fact that you're also attracted to the female form, which is me.
I totally love the fact that there's this masculine energy and masculine body, and then there's the soft feminine, and I can switch back and forth in any moment. That for me is the best. So if I was to be off by myself with just a guy, there wouldn't be that soft side.
Yeah. And it sounds like what you've both figured out that works for you is like a very fluid dynamic, but it is kind of specific, right? And it works for you really well. And I think that probably, as you've alluded to, took some time to figure out, but it sounds like it's going really well, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is.
I'm curious, Soul, have you done something or have you experienced something that you've learned that was like, wow, I wish I had known this 10 years ago or 20 years ago? Like, is there something that blew your socks off? Not that you were wearing socks in bed, but...
stripy ones with the toes separated. Is there something that I didn't know
that you could have taught
that you discovered that you're like, wow, this is something I wish I had known a long time ago?
Yes, that's the short answer. The longer answer is
have a good night. It was nice talking.
Yeah, it was nice talking to you. Good night. Let's see how I should word this. I have a lot of stamina, and having multiple men present in the room as tag team works when I'm in that mood, because I know it's a lot of work for you guys. I've seen it. I've seen the sweating. I've had my Tori caddy with the towel wiping their brow and the hips going, and they're like, "Oh man, I'm doing this. I can hang in there with you." And I'm like, I know it's a lot of work. Okay, so take a break and bring number 2 in. And that's been quite interesting. It doesn't happen very often, but, when that moment is right, having 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6
and I think
guys just around.
Well, and I think the lesson that you would give to your younger self is that you are fine the way you are. The fact is, you've always been a very sexual being. You've always been very full of energy and vitality, if you want to say, and
I'm virile,
and you suppressed it most of your life. You did the normal things that you're supposed to do. You met the guy when you were young, and you got married and tried to pigeonhole it all into that one relationship.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for one guy. Poor guy probably got prematurely gray trying to keep up with me. And now it's a complete different story, because, as I said, I'm totally understanding that it is a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And, some days, you can say that it's working well and you can go for a long time. And other days it's like, okay, I'm done. I'm tapping out. And I'm okay with that. But, bring in number 2.
Yeah. But I think part of it is what the dynamic we've created now is that anything that you suggest or anything that you're interested in, I'm like, okay, Yep, let's do it. Yep,
Yeah.
let's figure it out. Well, she's always the dreamer, talk about it, and I'm the logistics. So whatever she
I know
says,
I have to be careful about what I say because you will create it.
Yep.
And it's like, hey, look what I have for you today.
And you're like,
I just
did I
ordered-
say that?
Yeah, exactly. I just ordered a package from an online store, an online sex toy store, or whatever, and I didn't want to tell her what it was because it's coming for Christmas, or coming and she's like, no, you got to tell me what's going on in here. I'm like, don't worry, it's stuff you've all mentioned. She's like, I don't even remember what I mentioned.
It's a school bus full of men.
Oh my gosh. So we will see.
That's
But
amazing.
yeah, that would be the story I could add to that
Yeah.
to answer that question.
I also wanted to touch on the topic of safety. You know, you mentioned like part of the safety for you both is having each other there. But how do you handle the conversation around safer sex and that topic when playing with other people?
Yeah, it's great because I know you guys touch on this on your interviews with most people, and I'm really glad that you do. It's quite an interesting topic when you hear different podcasters talk about it and you hear different people when you're asking the question. Obviously, condoms for us are a must. They're just the reality of it. Being in Canada, we're lucky with our health system is that we have clinics that are devoted to exactly testing. So we basically can walk in, mind you, it's a long waiting list, but that's kind of like anything medical in Canada. You expect to wait.
Yeah.
But it's free. I was going to say it's free at least.
Yeah,
well,
we get tested regularly.
paid with our taxes. Yeah. So yeah, we do the regular quarterly testing and all of that. And the one thing that was interesting about that we discovered is that there are different levels of testing, and a lot of people don't realize that. So when we had first gone to some of these testing, there's things like even throat swabs for if someone's offering oral, or if they're like, they will ask you the questions about what types of sexual play that you do. And the answers to those are actually really important because they determine what tests they're going to do for you. And I think a lot of people get embarrassed about saying what they do, where it's honestly, it's just a health thing. They're just a nurse. They're not there to judge you. It's just answer the questions.
Right. And the soul's in there like, yeah, it was me and 7 guys. And then my wife was.
Well, the interesting thing was the last time we went, I was having a conversation with the nurse and she was asking the questions. And I don't know, I'm going to just guess because I tend to pick up on people's energy and you know what's really going on inside. I mean, I can't say I'm 100% accurate, but I kind of get a sense. And so we're having conversation, and the nurse was asking me questions, and I could almost sense that she's like, "Man, you're having a good time." she was a little younger than me, but kids were about the same age, and she's been married probably the whole time that I would have been married had I not changed relationships. And so, you know, she was asking the questions just so she would know what testing to do, but she would say things like, you know, are these repeat partners or one night stands? And I said, well, mostly one night stands. And she just had this look like, man, what are you doing? That sounds like a lot of fun. It was still, you know, medically speaking, she needed to know.
Yeah.
And no, I think that's amazing though that you're both able to do that and have those conversations, and yeah, it's exciting. And I get excited about weird things.
No, it is. It's important.
Well, I think the freedom that we have with each other now, and we hear people say it all the time, we're in the lifestyle and we're so much closer to each other than we were before. But there's nothing that's held back or having to worry about not saying, or just seeing somebody across the room and going, wow, look at that person. And being able to say that with your partner rather than feeling weird that, you know, you find somebody attractive. In the last episode that we just put out, there was a moment I described about walking through a crowd of people, and my eyes locked with this guy and his eyes locked with mine. And it was this mutual, we both had the same level of attraction. And, you know, I looked back and he looked back and we both were like, yeah, this. So we ended up talking to each other. And to be able to do that in a relationship and have this be something that brings us closer together,
Right.
because we're both there.
Mm-hmm.
And having Tori see that and see how we, I'm smiling and he's smiling and it's a good moment. It's great.
Has that ever caused any jealousy to come up, or have you largely been able to avoid that?
I think for me, I don't relate to the word jealousy. The only time I would say that there's ever been any sort of kind of version of that would be what I hear sometimes people call more of an envy than a jealousy. It's that, okay, no, you know what? I would like to be in the middle of that, or I would like to be involved in there. So then I get myself involved in there. It's kind of that simple.
I would like to touch that.
So then I ask permission and I join in wherever I want to be. So that's usually the only version. In reverse, it's a little bit different. Soul has feelings that are a little bit different than mine. So we are somewhat cautious of that. As I said, we always move at the pace of the slowest person. So if she's uncomfortable with something or feeling anxiety about something or not sure, if, for instance, when we do seek someone with our online profiles, we are very clear on our profile that showing a preference for one of us doesn't work, because she's more sensitive to that. So if someone is specifically into the much curvier bodies, because I've got more curves than she does, then that's probably not the best fit for us, because then their attention will tend to want to be drawn towards me all of the time. And that's as opposed to her that has more of the athletic curves. So yeah, so I think you just sometimes just rubs you the wrong way just because you're not as experienced with it, right?
Mm-hmm. And I'm getting a lot better at it. And we had conversations recently where it was just a turning point for me, where you said, you know what, being in these situations has made me closer to you, and it's always about us. And that reassured me, so that no matter what I saw or felt uncomfortable about, I just remembered you saying that, and then,
Mm-hmm.
fell away. Plus, having a few shots or something will make my brain stop making up stories.
It's funny because we're so not drinkers at all. But as we're getting ready to go out for a party, we'll usually have like a couple fireball shots or something, just because it just helps to get the brain to chill out.
Yeah. It does. It does. There's that fine line of like taking away the anxiety, but not too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and being drunk is not good.
No, and I would say I'm a very discerning person. I'm very detail oriented, but that is not helpful in situations like these where I see everything and I don't need to do that. So being a little bit drunk is helpful.
And I'm always the driver anyway, so I'm no problem not drinking. So, and I'm relaxed about everything anyway.
So along those lines, have either of you, and this wasn't on your pre-interview questionnaire, have either of you had a blooper moment, whether it was alcohol related or not, in all of your experiences? Something that was
interesting. You should say that. And alcohol related or not. Yeah, we'll talk about the alcohol. So with my little sweet innocent bride here that was only with one person really, well, two people, I guess, but one male before me and then a short female relationship she didn't do much about. She has not had much experience with many things that those of us delinquents in their teenage years did lots of. And so her first time getting drunk was actually on our honeymoon at Temptation Resort last year.
This year.
Well, that was this year, 2018. Yes,
okay. Wow. 6 months ago.
Yeah. So that's the first time in her life that she was ever drunk to the point where you're staggering. The problem is when you're in the pool, you don't always know how the alcohol is affecting you until you try to get out of the pool.
Well, I knew because I had probably a couple of tequila shots and I felt, I'm good and I can handle more. So, she brought 2 more tequila shots and I had other drinks that I had in between there. And I'm walking in the pool and then I turned to her and I went, everybody's starting to look really good. I'm starting to lose my discretion. Please, you know what I like and don't like.
Steer me the right
Please
way.
guide me in the right way. I'm just telling you now. But the thing is, when I'm drunk,
We've discovered
I don't look or sound drunk. I just said to her, I'm losing discretion. That's all she knew. And so we're walking in the pool, and the next thing I know, I bumped into somebody that we had talked to the night before, and my hand went down his pants.
It was consensual.
And I was like,
yes. So
next thing I knew,
we were in his room.
His room, and there was his girlfriend, and I don't remember much.
Yeah, but I again did not know she was that drunk, because she wasn't staggering yet. She wasn't slurring. She wasn't, other than her saying, I'm losing discretion, which, okay, fine. This is going to be fun. Great. And I already knew she was interested in the guy, so that's not a problem. So that was it. And then when we finished in the room, that's when she realized it was all hitting her.
The whole room flipped upside down, and everything came out. And I was like, ooh, this is
that's not
sexy at all. So I was chaperoned.
You made it to the bathroom, though.
Yes. And I was chaperoned, you on one side, the guy on the other side, and walking across the entire resort.
You have to understand, this is at about 5:00 in the afternoon. So it's not like
everyone at nighttime. And I'm being held up by these two people. I'm obviously drunk from a distance. People can go, okay, she has had too much to drink. I could not see. All I knew was I saw my feet, and there's two people holding me up.
Yeah, and the whole entire walk to our room, she's like, this is so not sexy.
So not sexy. I'm so sorry. This is not sexy.
And me and the guy are looking at each other. We're like, it's okay. We've all been there. And I look at him and I go, yeah, we were probably 15, but we've all been there.
And but I'm a trooper. I went to bed, and I was up by midnight, and we were back on the dance floor, and that was a good night. But oh my gosh, I was like I have a hard time even being near tequila right now.
So lesson learned, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the part that really struck me is that it's not that fun to be that drunk, because I don't remember what happened. I don't remember the fun, and what is the point of that?
Right.
So that's my lesson.
Well, that's a good lesson for everybody.
Yeah, as like a couple drinks is nice to take the edge off, take the anxiety off, loosen up a little bit. But beyond that, it ruins the
ridiculous.
Fun, right?
It's a waste, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember anything. More.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So tequila makes your clothes fall off.
Literally, the country song.
And unless there's something major that you want to get off of your chests, would you want to maybe tell us a little more about your show? You've alluded to it a few times, and I alluded to it very early on, but
fill us in a little bit, just for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, our show is called Torrid Souls. And as we said at the beginning of the interview, Soul mentioned that we were gifted the name because we were introducing ourselves as Tori and Soul. And someone at Desire Resort, the first time we were there, had mentioned that, wow, I've got a name for you guys, because they were already telling us we should be podcasters. And so Torrid Souls was invented. And so it was several months before we decided to actually take it seriously and go that route. But our podcast is, in essence, a lot about our learning and adventures. The reason why we wanted to bring our voices to this world that has a lot of lifestyle podcasts now, especially in the last year, is because we really see that the things that we do and the things that we learn help us to grow at new levels. And so when we record, we're often recording in the car or in the bed the next morning, so some of our audio is not always the greatest, but it is the in-the-moment realizations. One of our episodes, we started picking apart the word slut, and we were like, wow, it's actually a pretty good word. And so in doing these realizations just kind of in the moment, we really feel that we can help other people in the same way. We do include some of our sexy stories, but we're not so much the play-by-play type people as much as we are talking about what happened and sort of what we learned about it and how it influenced us to get us, as you said, to where we are so clear at what we're looking for in this moment. It could change next month or next year as to what we're looking for then, but right now, what has brought us to this point?
And our story based on the fact that there's often one partner that's not as experienced or relaxed about the situation, how to navigate that into having you both get into the lifestyle if that's what you want.
Because that is a common story.
Yeah, if one partner's enthusiastic and the other one's scared to death, how does that work? And they can see that, because I definitely was like that. And even within getting into the lifestyle and having a few experiences, stuff will come up. And we firmly believe it's about uncovering who you are. And in our intro, we're talking about opening your mind and your legs. And we really believe that it's, being okay with being a sexual person. And we all have different upbringing and backgrounds and have stories about how that looks and judgment about it. And it starts with being okay with who you are. And I've discovered that, what am I okay with? And Tori said, are you really okay with that? Or is that what you were taught? And I have to think about that. And then I relax into it and try it. And at the end of the day, we say, if nobody got hurt, it was okay.
Right.
So it's about just being okay with trying things.
So we try to be transparent about the things that we try to be transparent about the fact of how we're freaking out about something or our own insecurities, without getting into the drama part of it, more getting into what we've learned from that. Yeah, and that's the direction we kind of go.
And I'm curious, I'm back on your own, not necessarily related to your show, but have you noticed since you started going down this road roughly 7 years into your relationship, have you noticed a shift in your relationship?
Yeah, huge. The biggest shift is in the communication, which I know you hear that all the time. And anybody who's a newbie to the lifestyle is not going to believe it till they're there. But it's just, you can't not talk about stuff. There's like at the point that you're talking about what your preferences are sexually, or whether something worked for you or that didn't feel right, or we need to speak up more about that or not let that happen again.
Or we need a guy with a bigger dick.
Or whatever you might.
I couldn't feel that at all.
Okay. Or whatever you might happen to be discussing. Now, when it comes to finances or it comes to mundane, normal life stuff, it's like, it's not, how can you even stress about talking about the normal stuff? It's just, there's nothing that's restricting the conversations anymore.
Right.
And so the communication levels are huge. They're totally different.
I joke about a guy with a bigger dick, but what I'm actually saying is being comfortable with realizing that you might want something different and being able to speak about that and not feel embarrassed.
Yeah. In any aspect of your life. Yeah.
I like to joke, but I'm serious underneath all of it. And there is some method to my madness. But
I can relate to that.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's just, realizing, so we were with this guy and I noticed this. And so now I'm going to speak up and let's look for somebody else who has different attributes and see what that's like. And just, to be able to be free to go from teeny weeny to, oh my God, that is huge, and just be okay with that and talk about it. It's being open completely, and we've become closer and stronger and better, and we laugh a lot more.
Oh, we laugh all the time, and even our kids. It's funny because our kids don't totally get that we're in the lifestyle. They kind of know something's up. They're big kids. They're not little anymore.
Yeah.
And the youngest actually came to us. Actually, we were in the kitchen one day and we said a friend was coming over the weekend, not lifestyle related, knows nothing about life. So just a friend. And she lives out of town. So she's coming to spend the weekend. And she spent the weekend before. So we're just saying, okay, well, one of you's got to give up your bedroom. And so she can stay in that. We don't actually have a spare bedroom. So they just end up having to double up. And he's cooking on the stove and
scrambling eggs
or whatever.
Skip a beat.
And he's like, are you guys swingers?
kept stirring the eggs.
And we're like,
we looked at each
"Holy crap."
other.
Now, this was a while back, so we were not prepared for this at all.
And how old was he?
16,
at
15?
the time, he was probably about 14 or something.
Yeah, 14, 15, something
so
like that.
we looked at each other. His back was to us. So we looked at each other and we're like, pause. So I went, what does that mean to you? And he said, oh, it's just...
His answer was gret. He said, oh, it's just sexually adventurous people. And we're like, holy crap, this kid's good.
And we're like, oh, that's interesting. And he kept scrambling the eggs.
And that was kind of the end of the conversation.
But
we've had conversations since. We actually gathered them. We realized we were doing them a disservice not having conversations that included relationships that were outside of the norm of whatever you want to call the norm.
Yeah, we weren't admitting anything. We were just saying that we're now aware of things. And as parents, it is our duty, we think, is
to educate
you on what we now know and we didn't know before. So now we've met people in poly relationships and we describe what that was like. And we've met people who are bisexual and people who, whatever. And so as we were describing this to them,
well, the same child, who's the youngest of the three, by the way, the same child almost takes over the conversation. We're like sitting at a breakfast restaurant and he takes over the conversation. He's like, yes, and this and this and this.
And there's romantic relationships and there's sexual relationships. And, not all relationships that are sexual are romantic and not all ones that are romantic are sexual. And
he did your job for you.
And I was like,
he did everything.
To him.
We're all like, listen to him.
So it's kind of cool because having them be so open. Our main thing was that whether they were going to choose that for themselves or whether we are in that situation or not is irrelevant. What was more important is the fact that they should know about it so that if they do come across it, they don't go, oh, that's weird. They just go, oh, yeah, okay, that's cool. It's not for me, but that, my friends in a poly relationship
or they open themselves to the idea if that is for them.
To not know and that was where we thought the disservice was because, to go through life and be 20,
because they're sitting 40. Here seeing us as being this wonderfully connected, amazing, laughing couple. Because as you said, as this question started, is what has changed. We are so much better today than we were when we met. We are happy. We smile. We laugh constantly. We
travel a lot.
We travel a lot. And we poke fun at each other. We don't take it seriously. We don't get offended. It's just such a relaxed, amazing relationship. And they've seen the progression. They heard the fights. They heard the slamming doors. They know where we were
the power
10 years ago. So for them to see this and to not know that, oh, gee, there's other alternatives of reasons why this might be changed. So that's where we started to open the door. So we're pretty sure they've figured it out. And they now know, based on our relatively recent conversation with them, that the door's open for questions. If they want to come talk to us about it, they can come talk. If they want to know, 2 of the kids are in primary relationships now, and they are having some struggles getting past the sort of beginner honeymoon type stage into the power struggle. And so they know they can come talk to us. And we've dropped the hint that maybe they are not necessarily supposed to be just one-on-one. And they've kind of considered that. So
and just for letting them know that, 2 people in a relationship, they're going to be 2 different people and they're going to have different wants and needs, and to be able to discuss that and understand that it's about honoring each other and wanting the best for the other person. Sometimes that means it doesn't feel so good for you because it's not what you want, but it's about wanting the best for the other person and what that looks like. And so, it's evolved. We've become more confident in feeling comfortable with different terms and different scenarios. And, we feel like these sex therapists now where you can come and you can say anything to us. And we're like, yep, okay. So we've probably experienced that or come across somebody who has, and, we can find the answer even if we don't know it ourselves. Yeah. And, we feel more equipped as a parent and a partner.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. And if you're okay, we maybe leave it there because I think that's a really good place to end it. I was just going to say that, yeah. However, I have one other question.
Well, then we're not really leaving it there.
No. This one won't last long. Is poutine a good pre-party food?
Ooh.
Pre-party food? What kind of party?
You know what kind of party.
I thought you were going to ask, is Jay the sexiest man alive? Everybody wants to know that.
Yeah, he asks it everywhere he can.
Everywhere he can.
Poutine. Well, I suppose not every Canadian loves it. Well, mind you, you weren't born here, so you don't count, I guess.
Gravy, soggy fries.
I love poutine.
Cheese and
love it.
And gravy.
She can't stand it.
Squishy fries. Does that sound like I'm in love with that?
So for people who don't know, it's French fries, right, with a gravy on top.
And
first you have to put cheese curds. You put cheese curds on top, so there's a specific type of cheese, and then you pour gravy over the entire thing, and then the curds melt, and so it's kind of.
But this is what I've found. The fries are not like, I don't know, the crunchy, salty fries.
Depends where you get it. Yeah.
But it's usually the fat, mushy, squishy fries that you have to eat with a little wooden 2-pronged fork.
Yeah.
So it's a yes for Tori and a no for Soul.
Well, I still don't know that I'd be going and filling my stomach and being that bloated before I'm going to try to go out and be sexy. So, no.
Do it after, on the way home.
So that's
that's a good
key takeaway from tonight's episode.
Post-party snack.
There you go. Post. It's fill yourself back up with calories. Yeah.
If you learned anything tonight, it's when to eat poutine.
And what poutine is, if you didn't already know.
Important stuff.
All right. Well,
everything else was all made up. That's right. Important stuff.
That's right. Everything was building to this question. So
exactly.
Thank you
I can understand.
I sense that.
Thank you for
indulging
my question and for everything else tonight.
Yeah,
really
thank you so much for your time. It's been really fun talking to both of you.
Oh, well, thank you guys. You guys are hilarious, by the way. It's been such a pleasure to watch your transformation from their first episode to as they keep going. We get to hear more and more of your two personalities, and you guys, I just love it. I'm chuckling all the time. I love your guys. You think of just being the interviewers, you think that, okay, fine, it's all about the guests, but it's so not. You guys really make the show.
Well, we appreciate that. And thank you. So
yeah. You're welcome.
And it didn't matter how many times we practiced our answers. You asked different things and it went a completely different direction. And it's awesome because I was like, wow, I learned a lot about myself today.
Yay! That's fine.
You'll be getting an invoice for this hour.
I should have been lying down when this was happening.
All right. Well, you two have a wonderful Canadian evening, and we will have a wonderful Chilean evening.
Yes.
And we will be in touch and talk soon.
Okay, sounds great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we back.
Yes, I'm back again.
Thank you, Tori and Soul, for your patience and for creating your show. We're super happy to promote it and get your names out there.
Exactly.
Maybe they're out there more than ours. Who knows?
And I think a lot of people will benefit from listening to their show too. So please go check that out.
Real quick, as we didn't mention at the top of the show, we have 2 quick resources, neither of which are affiliated with our show in any way. We don't get any kickbacks from them, but the first is myonecondoms.com. There's links in the show notes, but it's custom fit condoms.
Yeah, and you can go and get a 10% discount by using the code EMMA at checkout.
Yep. Again, not affiliated with us, but they were willing to give us 10% off. So go check them out and give us some feedback on that. Mm-hmm. The other one is not affiliated with us, but it's something that we wanted to throw at you because we talked a little bit about the how to save some money or manage your money at the top of the show. This one is how to save literally buckets of money
on airfare.
So it's a website called Scott's Cheap Flights. Again, not affiliated with our show in any way other than we use it. We're premium members. It's literally, I just checked, $39 a year, and they basically send you like 20 emails a day of flight deals, and you basically pick like where your favorite airports are and where you might want to go, and they just send you notifications of like, sometimes it's mistake fares where it's like $500 off a flight, or we've been seeing lots of stuff like flying from the Midwest to Sydney, Australia for like $600 a person, which if you've ever looked into those flights, they're usually like $1,400 a person. So give them a try. It's just a way to get you cheaper airfare. They fly to Cancun. They fly all over. It's an awesome service. So go check them out.
Yeah.
And check us out next week.
Is episode 50.
The big 50.
We have some awesome guests, Rachel and Tatum.
Yeah, they are two young women who are starting their journey and exploring sort of what non-monogamy is going to be for them. And it's actually a really fascinating sort of, they almost just talk through it on our show.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. So we had two women this week, and we got two women next week. So
woo woo, go women.
Anyway, that's awesome. We're super excited. So we will see everybody in a week, and go have a good Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Bye, everyone. I'm going to cut them off. Let's go.